Welcome, Sharon Steed, to the Empathy Edge podcast. This has been such a long time in the planning to have a conversation with you about your wonderful, wonderful work, empathy and communication, empathy in the age of AI, all of this great stuff. So, welcome to the show.
Yeah, I am so happy to be here and have this conversation today.
I know. And I don't even know how we originally got connected. I think it was through a conference or something that we were both on years ago,
I think
maybe a
so,
virtual conference.
probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah,
That
yeah,
makes sense. I know. It's like
that sounds right.
how we're connecting with people and meeting with people is so different than it was like a decade ago. So
Yeah.
so tell us a little bit about your story before we kick off into this topic of vulnerability and empathy in communication and empathy in the age of AI. Before we go there, what got you into the empathy world?
So I have a little bit of an unusual background. I'm a person who stutters, and I had sort of come to this point in my life when I was so afraid of just like talking to people like that. I was beginning to like avoid conversations entirely, right? And so I had gone through like all of my youth and all of schooling and college, and I was able to sort of just skate by on like avoiding some conversations and like only like including myself in things where I felt more comfortable and confident speaking.
Hmm.
Um, but then, you graduate from college, and then you get out into the workforce, and all of a sudden, I have to be able to, confidently speak about all of the things that I'm capable of and the things that I want to do and to accomplish. Well, I was so intimidated like by this whole idea of just like having to talk to people, that I was sort of avoiding a lot of situations where I was going to have to talk to people, right? And
Mm.
so I remember like attempting to go to like events to connect with people, to network, and I would just be so terrified that like I would be like in a corner and like I'm not going to be able to say my name and like stuff. And so yeah, I was talking to a speech therapist like that I was seeing at the time, and she suggested that I try public speaking.
Mm.
So I said, yeah, okay, cool. Well, okay, no,
I was
okay.
like, did you really say,
At
yeah, okay, cool, but
first,
yeah.
I was like, you are you are completely bananas. There's no way I can do this. I've avoided having to do this my entire life, and you want me to
Mhm.
get in front of a room full of people and talk? Like, you're what? No,
Yeah.
absolutely not. Um, but then, I sort of like came around to this whole like idea of like, okay, like if I am afraid of something, I think the only way that I'm going to be able to really like conquer this fear is if I just face it in the
Mhm.
most, you know, over the top way possible. And
Right.
so, I thought, like I'm just going to give one or two talks and I'll be cured and I'll never be afraid to speak again. And that obviously is not what happened.
Right, right.
However, what did happen was a lot of people began to really come up to me and say, hey, I really appreciate you talking about vulnerability and empathy. And
Hmm.
I thought that was really interesting because, like, I don't even think I said the word empathy in
Hmm.
my talks, but
Hmm.
I think it just came through. And so
Mm.
after hearing that several times, I decided to just explore this concept and really research this topic and sort of create content around insecurity and vulnerability, and
Hmm.
like how those things can help us be better connectors, and how they can help us to be a little bit
Hmm.
more understanding, a little bit more empathetic at work specifically.
Wow. And I'm curious if, like, specifically diving into empathy, and the answer can be no. I'm just curious, is it because you felt sometimes that people weren't being empathetic with you, or even just seeing people not be empathetic with anyone who's different or anyone who might have an issue? Like, was
Mhm.
that part of it, of diving deeper into empathy, or was it that, did that just come through from the responses that you were getting to what you were talking about?
So, I think it was twofold, right? Yes, like it came from what a lot of people were like coming up to me and saying,
Hmm.
but also I am an incredibly sensitive person. Like I feel things very deeply, and I
Hmm.
feel like I've always sort of viewed situations and like viewed other people and like how they are going to feel in a specific situation, and I've
Hmm.
always related it back to like how it would make me feel.
Hmm.
And I think a part of that is like being a person who stutters. I,
Hmm.
always like wanted to talk to people, like, but I didn't want to be like the center of the conversation. And
Yeah.
so I was always asking follow-up questions as a way to like sort of continue to like be in the conversation, like, but to avoid talking. And so I
Yeah.
spent a really long time just being like really curious about other people, and just
Hmm.
like constantly like trying to find questions that I could like pose to them.
Hmm.
And I think that as a result of just like always asking questions, I was able to better see, how like people think, how they
Hmm.
like come to the feelings like that they have.
Hmm.
And that combined with just being like a very sensitive person
Yeah.
just really just lent itself
Yeah.
to me eventually talking about being empathetic
Yeah.
as a
Well, and
yeah.
we both know curiosity is the number one trait of empathic people. And so and I love that because that concept of like when I do this too, where if I don't want to talk or I'm feeling like my tank is low, I'll tend
Mhm.
to ask more questions, or if I'm uncomfortable in a
Yeah.
situation, because then it gets the other person talking and the focus is off me.
Oh yeah.
And then they're
Absolutely.
like, that was the best conversation I've ever had, because they're talking about themselves the whole time, right?
That's the trick. That's the
That's the
trick.
trick, right? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about communicating with empathy. So that is what you train on, that's what you speak on, is helping people understand how to communicate and get their point across. And, like with my work as with leaders, is helping them still hold people accountable, still have performance expectations, communicate with empathy so that they can actually accomplish more and they can
Mhm.
actually optimize their people for peak performance. So, I would love to hear what your definition of communicating with empathy is. And what do you see as the reasons why some people are unable to communicate with empathy?
Well, so like off the bat, I feel like every time we are opening our mouths to like have a conversation with someone, we are actually engaging in an act of incredible empathy, and we probably don't even know, right? Like if we are in a conversation and there's like us and another person, like just the act of listening to them
Hmm.
is supposed to be an incredibly empathetic act, right? And so, when we are listening to people, our
Hmm.
goal there is to really just understand where they are coming from, and to just hit another perspective,
Hmm.
right? Like that's the entire point of listening.
Hmm.
And like those two things are really foundational communication and
Mm-hmm.
empathy principles. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I describe communicating with empathy as putting understanding and perspective at the center of every single conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And we spend a lot of our lives communicating, right? Having conversations, like talking to people. And as a person who's spent, her entire life being so concerned about, how I'm communicating, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I was really able to sort of focus on, how do we continue to really impress upon teams and companies that when we speak, we should always be coming from a place of, yes, I want to get my point across. However, I want to really understand where you are coming from as well,
Mm-hmm.
because it's going to help us, one, create better products, and two, just be a lot better at collaborating as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, what do you, when you're working with teams or people, what are some of the biggest barriers they have to communicating with empathy?
I think that the biggest thing that I've seen, and I constantly hear this, is that people are just very intimidated, like by this concept of communication. I don't know if you have seen this as well,
That's
like where
interesting.
everybody swears that they are terrible at communicating, and I'm like, well, no, because every single time you like enter a room, you are communicating, right?
Yeah, whether you've opened your
Um,
mouth or not. Yeah.
exactly. And so I think that a part of the reason like my talks are so effective is because like people see that like I do have a physical, challenge with communicating.
Mm-hmm.
However, I am still articulate and people can, really connect
Mm-hmm.
with, like my content and like the things that I'm trying to get across.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like I, I am attempting to show people like that even if you think you are terrible at communication,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you're not. Because if you are able to like go into a conversation, you speak, the other person speaks, and you can come to some sort of positive conclusion where you can both then go off and like do the things that you have to do as a result of that conversation, then you are a good communicator. And so the biggest thing that I have to sort of convince people of is that you are not bad at communicating, right? And then the other challenge is just explaining what empathy, should be in terms of behaviors, right? Like empathy is this really cool concept. However, a lot of people don't really like completely understand how can we go into a conversation and focus on like being empathetic. And so those are the two things that I really sort of hone in on when I'm giving a talk.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when you're working with it's funny because you're talking about these leaders who don't think they're good communicators, and yet there's lots of leaders who think they're great communicators and they're not empathetic at all, right? And it's
Yeah.
almost that I always talk about ego kills empathy because
True.
your self-awareness is not there and you're not aware of what you're bringing to the table. You're not aware of what you're bringing into the interaction and how
Yeah.
it might be impacting somebody else. And it's only when you're willing to see how something impacts someone else that you start to change your communication, right? For some people, whether it's modulating your speed or your tone, whether it's these people need a little bit more direction and guidance and these people need a little bit more just give me the bottom line, tell me what to do, right? That's actually communicating with empathy. When you adjust and adapt to the person that you're
Yeah.
talking to, I always say it's not just crying on the floor with your employees. Empathy shows up in these ways that we actually do without thinking sometimes. If we're interested in effective communication, I should say, right?
Oh
But
yeah, for sure.
but what about the people who are who are communicating and saying, well, and there's research that bears this out. There's a lot of executives who go, well, empathy has no place in the workplace, which boggles my mind because empathy has a place whenever humans are interacting with other humans. But how do you work with clients like that who are saying, well, this isn't the time or place for empathy?
You know what? I I always have to begin like with how is this going to make you money, right? Like
Yes, the
that
ROI of empathy. Yes.
exactly,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, a thing that like I explain to people is that like if you are beginning a company or if you are creating a product, right? You are doing that because like there is some sort of cap in the current consumer marketplace
Mm-hmm.
like that requires your product to be created, your product or your service.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when you are creating this product or you are creating this service, you
Mm-hmm.
are thinking about, okay, like what does my ideal customer, why would they use this product? How are they going to use this product?
Mm-hmm.
How can I get this product in in front of them, like
Mm-hmm.
so um, it can improve your life.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you are going to do like a lot of testing, right? You are going to talk to your customers. You are going to like listen to their stories,
Mm-hmm.
and you are going to have conversations around the reasons why they are going to use this product,
Mm-hmm.
how it's going to benefit their life, and these situations, where specifically they are going to like insert that product
Mm-hmm.
into their like day-to-day experience.
Mm-hmm.
All of those things I have described are 100% empathy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
so imagine what would sort of transpire if you like had that same approach on your teams internally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you have a coworker or if you have a direct report
Mm-hmm.
having a hard time, right? Like they feel uncomfortable sharing their ideas or their opinions, or
Mm-hmm.
they're just struggling to really keep up with their teammates. Well, what is their experience on this team? Like in a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm.
How are they approaching their work? Like, what steps are they taking? And, why are those steps, like not effective in, like either, productivity or
Mm-hmm.
communication or like good
Mm-hmm.
collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
So, anytime a company comes to me and says, hey, like, I don't see why this is important. Well, used empathy to create this company in the first place. And you are going to have empathy in order to keep your employees in your company
Mm-hmm.
and to continue to create like good effective products. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I mean, it really is you have to hold up a mirror and say,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
why are you here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all those reasons why you are here are the same reasons why you need to focus on your internal operations as well as
Mm-hmm.
your external operations.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. I mean, I talk a lot with my clients about the business case of empathy and giving them the data and giving them the research that shows how it boosts innovation and engagement and performance and collaboration, and then the
Yeah.
external benefits of being an edge in the market. The bar is so low when it comes to customer service
Oh
that when
God.
you treat
So
people with
bad.
empathy and you're only able to treat your customers with empathy if your employees are being treated with empathy. Otherwise, they're operating in fear and anxiety and stress, and that's never going to be a good experience that they're going to share with your external customers. So I love
100%.
that. It's about the business case. So
Yeah.
can you give us a little taste of some of the tips and some of the strategies that you share with your clients around how to communicate with empathy, especially if they're struggling to tap into their own empathy, if they struggle with
Mm.
connection, if they struggle with, and it could be a struggle based on neurodiversity, right? It could be a struggle
Mhm.
based on just their own upbringing or where they come from. What are some tips that you give them on how to better communicate with empathy?
Yeah, for sure. I always begin with sort of the foundational things, right?
Hmm.
And like the foundation of everything that, we are going to be doing as people, it begins sort of internally, right?
Hmm. Starts at home. Got to get your house in order, right?
Absolutely. And so in order to do that, you know, first are going to have to be incredibly patient, right? And I think that we sort of view conversations especially as like, okay, I'm coming into this conversation, I'm going to talk, and then I'm going to wait for my turn to talk again, and then I'm going to talk again,
Right,
right?
right.
And that is that's not helping anybody, right? Like the entire point of communication and having a conversation is to get perspective on another person's experiences or just another person's opinion,
Hmm.
right? And so like I like to say, you can make your world larger by making another person's world better, right? And so
Hmm.
you create, a good experience for another person, like by just listening to, their stories and their vulnerabilities and
Hmm.
the things that like they have experienced.
Hmm.
And it's impossible to do that if we don't first focus on, again, being patient. And so how do we be patient, right? And so I have to break these things down in a way like where it's how do we turn these like really great concepts
Hmm. Yeah,
into like things that you can physically do.
right.
And so, like being patient, just kind of comes down to stopping, right? Like we live in a world where we are constantly being sort of bombarded with a ton of content all the
Hmm.
time, right?
Hmm.
There is social media, there are text messages, there's a 24-hour news cycle. There are tons of things that we are like constantly consuming. And so
Yeah.
it can be very difficult to just like stop and to give this person in front of you your entire attention, right?
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, like we just focus on like, okay, like, you are going to have to pause. And I know that it's really hard, but pause and just focus on this person in front of you. And
Hmm.
then another thing that I like to talk about in patients is the physical act of listening. You know,
Hmm.
when we are in these conversations, a lot of the times, if we are listening
Hmm.
to another person, we are sort of trying to hear what they like have to say so we can sort of pass a little bit of judgment on it. And it isn't on purpose. It's
Right.
just, when we are talking to people and like
Yeah.
their words go into our brains, it sort of like goes through a filter of like our own opinion. And so
Mm-hmm.
when we are listening
Mm-hmm.
people, we should be focused on, you know, how do I keep my assumptions and my biases and my opinions as low as possible. And so like that could mean like, hey, could you repeat what you said so like I can get clarity?
Mm-hmm.
Or it could mean like, hey, so I heard you say like A, B, and C.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, did I get that right?
Reflective listening is so key. And
Exactly.
I love what you're saying. Like just to jump in here. I love what you're saying because it's this idea. I'm going to put a link in the show notes to another episode that I did with Dr. Chris Johnson, where she
Okay.
talked about the power of the pause. I don't know if you're familiar with her work, but her work is great. And she talks about both like physically and mentally the things you can do to kind of make yourself take the pause. Like it's deep breathing. It's like clarifying what taking a second to reflect back what you heard before you launch into whatever you think you're going to launch into. And
Yeah.
it's just that concept of listening to understand and build your own knowledge versus listening to talk to
For sure.
what you were describing earlier. And I know I struggle with it too, right? And I'm interviewing people all the time and I'm talking all the time, but it's amazing when you just get rid of the stuff in your own head and you're
Hmm.
able to say like right now I am going to be present with this person and my intention is to hear what they have to say so I can learn something from it.
Yeah.
Just even like out loud setting that intention for yourself, maybe before you go into a meeting or before you go into even a contentious conversation, like let
Oh,
me take some
absolutely.
time to
Yeah.
figure out what that other person's perspective and context is
Hmm.
before I go in guns blazing with, here's why I'm right and you're wrong.
Yeah.
And we can just tell ourselves that. I know someone who always tells me there's power in saying it out loud. It almost is a mantra. If you say it
Yeah.
out loud and you hear yourself saying like, I'm going to go into this conversation to understand, not just to talk about my opinion. Just saying that out loud is really powerful because your ears hear it.
Hmm.
And then you're able to sort of like use that as a grounding for yourself of this is, or I need to stay present in this conversation. And it's
Yeah.
okay to say it out loud.
Oh,
So,
for sure.
yeah. So
Yeah,
talk.
you know what? I think that like, it's so easy to just like go into conversations with this whole like, one, I want to get my point across and like I want to make sure that this other person like really gets everything that I'm trying to say, right?
Yeah.
And well, but I mean, like that's sort of how we view effective communication is how we speak, how we present. And I think that a part of the reason why a lot of people resonate with this sort of talks that I give is because I sort of like turn that on its head, right? Like I talk about how like I spent a lot of time, being so concerned about how I sound and
Hmm.
how I feel and how uncomfortable I was.
Hmm.
That I really couldn't get to like properly and sincerely connect with a lot of people that I was having conversations with.
Mm.
And so, yeah, it is so important to sort of go into these conversations from a, you and me perspective and not
Yeah.
a me perspective.
I love that. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit because I know this has been a hot topic I've been out talking about, you've been out talking about, and that is empathy and AI.
Yeah.
And I know you have a LinkedIn course. Not only do you have a LinkedIn course about, you know, communicating with empathy, but one about empathy in the age of AI. And I've waxed poetic on that, but I would love to hear your perspective on the role of empathy in the age of AI. And do we need it? Do we not? Is it
Yeah.
more important? Is it less important? Talk to us about your perspectives on that.
Well, one, it is more important. So, like, let's get that out of the
That
way.
was a leading question. Yeah.
It is more important to have empathy in this very highly, highly technical age. And
Hmm.
I have had a kind of conversations about this with people from a lot of different industries, and the overwhelming sort of feeling is that, like, these technologies, these programs, these softwares are only going to get better, right? And so, a lot of the things that, we have had to do in the past, we aren't going to have to do those things anymore. And yes, AI is going to take a lot of things away.
Hmm.
However, it's also going to give us a lot more space and a lot more capacity to really connect with other people,
Hmm.
And so when I'm having these conversations, I'm always sort of blown away by how, you know, almost every single person is like, no, no, we need to focus on, being human centered in this, tech obsessed world.
Hmm.
And, you know, AI is going to give us an incredible opportunity to just focus on how can we, build stronger relationships.
Hmm.
Um, how can we get more perspective? How
Hmm.
can hear more stories? And
Hmm.
so, yeah, I think that there is for sure a place for empathy in
Hmm.
the age of AI,
Hmm.
because everything that we are doing, is going to continue to be done and used and created and scaled by
Hmm.
people. So
Hmm.
as long as we as people are involved in all of these processes,
Hmm.
we're going to have to really focus on being empathetic.
Yeah.
I would
I
love to hear
always,
what you think about this.
well, yeah, I mean, I love this because my feeling is when AI takes over the tasks that many leaders have relied on to keep
Hmm.
themselves relevant and busy, all we're left with is leaders that are really good at their human connection skills.
Yeah.
That's where they're going to add the most value. And those leaders that have hidden behind the doing and not the leading and not the people part of the leading will have nowhere to hide
Yeah,
because
for
we're
sure.
taking away the thing that keeps them, behind their desk and not interacting with their
Mm.
people. And so in my view, and maybe, I know it's a little biased because of the work I do, but that emotional intelligence and that empathy as a skill for a leader is going to be even more important
For
because
sure.
that's the thing it can't replicate. And if you've been hiding behind the doing as a leader and not the being as a leader and the connecting as a leader, you're going to need to upskill like now.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then I think that also, this is going to force companies to really, like put their people first.
Yeah.
Um, I was talking to one of my tech friends who is a software developer, and
Hmm.
he was saying, like, I don't want AI to like have me be 10x productive. I
Right.
want AI to give me like a 4-day work week. I want AI to like do a lot of the work so like I can like go home at 5 p.m.
Right.
and like take my kids to soccer. And
Right.
so, as we get like just like incredibly, like tech obsessed and
Yeah.
automating things away,
Hmm.
I think that a lot of companies are going to have to figure out like, okay,
Hmm.
like what is the balance of
Hmm.
I want you to be as productive as possible. However,
Right.
are a person, and like all of the top talent is like, look, I know what AI can do, so you're gonna have to give me a little bit more here
Yeah.
because I can just go to another company like that's going
Yeah.
to respect like that.
Yeah.
I know exactly what AI is capable of. I know what I'm capable of. And
Hmm.
going to have to give us a little bit more than what you're
Right.
giving us. Yeah.
Right, right. Well, and they're finding that the sweet spot blend of really maximizing AI is AI combined with human intervention. And you're
Yeah.
still going to need domain experts. You're still going to need
Mm.
people to populate the learning models. You're still going to need, and even when we're talking, I speak to a lot of founders on the show of empathic AI or people that are in the field of empathic AI. And you can't outsource something, you can't program something that you yourself don't understand
Yeah.
and you yourself haven't mastered. So, it's about, and I'll put a link to Michelle Zhao's interview. She's the founder of Juji, which is a empathic AI solution. And
Oh,
she
that's so
said,
weird.
it's about having those people that can actually populate the technology and populate the learning models. And then there's always still going to be a need for a human element. It can't,
Yeah.
it can't effectively, we're not going to get all the efficiencies and all the benefits of it by just sort of outsourcing everything we're not good at to it because it won't know what to do with that. It's sort of like outsourcing a process that you haven't optimized yourself. And now you've just something that you're not good at on somebody else.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So we need that ability to build our own capacity for empathy and our own capacity for connection in
Yeah.
order to continue to refine and tailor AI to be the partner, the thought partner, the process partner that we need. But it doesn't give us an excuse to sort of check out.
100%.
Yeah.
As long as people are at the center of like creating these products, which we probably are going to be for a while, at least I
Hmm.
would hope, we're
Hmm.
always going to have to, have some capacity for that understanding and that perspective taking in order to continue to create these
Hmm.
products because consumers are people and they are using your products as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, so this has been such a great conversation, Sharon. Thank you so much for your insights and for
It's been
being with us
amazing.
today. I want to remind people that you've got your two LinkedIn courses, Communicating with Empathy and the one about empathy in the age of AI. So
Yeah.
people can go check that out. We'll put links to those in the show notes. We'll have all your links in the show notes. But for people that are on the go, where's the best place they can find out more about your work?
You can definitely just go head over to my LinkedIn. It's just my name. I feel like I'm probably the first one that's going to come
Up
like
in the
into the
search.
search.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and so yeah, I have a newsletter on there that I update 1 to 2 times a month, depending on how things are going.
Yeah.
On vulnerability in the workplace. And then I also do a LinkedIn Live on empathy in automation, where we
Wow.
talk about empathy in this very like tech focused worlds. And I usually do
Great.
that 3 times a month-ish. So yeah,
Okay.
all of that information is on there. So
Wonderful.
yeah, I would love to connect with all of the people and meet you. So
I love it. And as I always do with my PSAs, is if you connect with Sharon on LinkedIn, make sure you put a note that says you heard her on the podcast so she doesn't think you're trying to sell her something. Um,
thank
Sharon,
you
thank you
so
so
much.
much for your time and for the work that you're doing in the world. We so appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. I had an incredible time and I loved our conversation.
And thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of the Empathy Edge podcast. If you like what you heard, you know what to do. Please rate, review, and share it with a friend or a colleague. And until next time, please remember that cash flow, creativity, and compassion are not mutually exclusive. Take care and be kind.